Go ahead, Randy.
Hi. Uh, we've talked about and acknowledged and looked at and proven 100 times that this is the youngest team you've ever put on. You there to put on the team to put on the field that I always say. How did this roster get so young?
Yeah, I think if you look back to 21, that COVID year, and you see how old we were during that time frame, and I think you're just the ramifications of that 2021 COVID season, and probably even a little bit last year. Um, just a lot of veteranness has left our football program in the course of 21-22 football season, and in a positive way, there's a lot of sophomores and juniors that are playing really good football. And I think a little tribute to the recruiting process the last 2 years. I would say the strength of the recruiting classes that we were able to have over the last two football seasons, probably really over the last three, probably have guided the youth getting on the field so fast. And again, I think if you look back to the early part of this 17 and 18, there was a lot of young guys that started playing as well, and those names are now playing on Sundays and Mondays and look really good. And so, I just think that's kind of the evolution of where we are. But I still, even though there is youth and a lot of very talented youth, when I still watch the videotape, I still see the guys that are, man, they paved their way here. They're the glue. They've grown in our football program, and they're the ones that are really playing with elite consistency and trying to usher this youth to match its consistency along the way. So young and talented, but also I think as good of veteran leadership, at least we've had at the top. And like I said, I think the one neat thing for us is you look at the senior class, all those seniors are playing. I again, when we've been at our best, we've had a senior class where all the seniors were actually not just on the team, but they were making a direct impact on the football game. And that's what I'm excited about this team as well, is that senior class is really playing great football out the gates, and certainly lost a couple of those guys last week, so that hurt, but hopefully get those guys back this week.
Is there a rule of thumb among the staff, among you and Hudge or anybody, about how many? Okay, you can plan on X amount of players going into the portal. Is there?
Yeah, I no, just
Yeah.
because I think, and I would say statistically, and you can verify this, but I would say we're as, at least in the last 3 years, we're as good as anybody in retention rate in college football. I think, yeah, we've lost a couple players, but I think when you globally look at our football team, that's what's made us have the ability to recover and not be a total, absolute rebuild, is, man, our ability to retain players and those players growing in our football program.
One last thing in this. Um, since you are playing so many young players, including a lot of true freshmen and starting a true freshman, at what point will you turn the true freshman loose and let them start talking to the media?
Yeah, we'll look at that. I think what my thought process has always been just is, man, those kids got so much coming at them. You got school, you got football. I think the transition from college to from high school to college, especially at this level, there's just so much coming at them. So that's really, it's not a, man, am I afraid that they say something stupid? It's a matter of, man, how can I protect these guys and keep trying to take as much off their plate and just let them get off to a great start as anything.
Is it not one more thing?
Go ahead.
Sorry, Kev. Is it on your plate? Is it on the coaches' plate in this day of name, image, and likeness? Is it on the coaches' plate to help the player promote the
Uh,
brand? Which, in fact, say
Certainly.
what you want about a true freshman being in
Sure.
front of the media, that would help.
I think that's a great point, and I think there's certainly positives and negatives to all of it. And so, I still think the best brand is play good football, and that helps your brand really well.
Speaking of playing good football, Jeremiah Cooper, I mean, he obviously had a lot of moments last year, but nothing quite like these first two games. What's it
Yeah.
like to break out like that?
And I think, Travis, that's what you would hope, in terms of growth. There's a kid that started. I always go back to TJ. It's like, man, TJ had that great, played sophomore year. You kind of noticed him, sometimes bad, sometimes good. And then, man, his junior year, you really saw him break out. And I think Jeremiah just got so much playing time last year. When Malik goes down early in the season, we move Anthony into the boundary, and now Jeremiah gets those opportunities. And there are some really good plays that he made a year ago, and there's also some plays, I go back to that Texas game, there's a couple plays you're, man, daggone, he's like a hair off. And I just feel like that's the evolution, especially at safety. I mean, safety, tight end, there's some places where, man, you're asking a freshman to play early. It's hard to do that. And I think what we asked him to do a year ago was really hard. We're paying the benefits of it, of getting those quality reps a year ago. And I just think if you look at even his high school career, what kind of football player he really was in high school, man, he was a guy that we felt was going to be really special. And then to have that competitive excellence in him to grow, even with some success a year ago, I think it tells you a lot about his character too.
He told us that after the injury last year, he thought that was an opportunity for him to get better. Did you see him take advantage of that time?
Yeah, and I think where he took the most advantage is physically. He's I probably, if I'm guessing saying this, but my guess is right around 175 pounds playing Big 12 football at safety. And I think you saw a guy totally transform his body. And I think, yeah, he had surgery, but I think the positive for him is he got to put his time and effort into, man, the physical piece of it, the mental piece, almost sit back, slow the game down through spring football, but physically really enhance his body. So you give him a lot of credit because sometimes guys get injured and, that injury can throw you for a loop, and it never did him. And so we're certainly proud of what he's done.
How important has it been for this offense to see the tight end room kind of take a step forward and have a few different playmakers emerge?
Yeah, I think it's pivotal to our success. I think when you and the playmakers are great in terms of making some catches and plays. I think equally you see the blocking and the ability to create edges and try to create matchups. With what we've always tried to do offensively is find matchups within the game to give ourselves an opportunity to have success. And when you have tight ends, you're allowed, it allows you formationally to do a lot of different things. And so I think those guys have been exceptional. It's been great to have those guys back. Steve-O was dinged up, didn't play much lot last week, but hopefully he'll be back ready to rock and roll this week. He's another unique piece that I thought was really great week one. It'll be great to have him back and continue to add to that tight end room.
Matt, in 2015, your Toledo team hosted Iowa State. How big of an opportunity is this going to be for a program like Ohio to host a Power 5 program?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I first of all, you're talking about one of the premier programs in the Mid-American Conference, a team that played in the Mid-American Conference championship game a year ago. Had they not lost their quarterback, last year for that game, who knows, played outstanding, played great in the bowl game. And then just honestly, as well coached of a football team, that I've seen coming out of the conference. I mean, Coach Alvin been there, was with Coach Solich, tough attitude, effort, man, understands how you win football games. I think how their kids play. I mean, man, they run to the football on defense. They're physical up front on offense. And then they got a great quarterback. It'll be the best quarterback we've played against so far this football season, and one of the best quarterbacks we've seen in a long time. He's tough. So it's a great challenge. It's a great place to play college football, to be honest with you. We played there a bunch. One of the great MAC environments. So it's going to be a really tough road game, and what a great challenge for our football team to go into a team that knows how to play championship football and a great competitor for us.
Sticking with going back to Ohio, what kind of emotions are you feeling going back to your home state in a conference that you obviously had a lot of success in the past?
Yeah, I'll be really honest with you. I think my emotions have gone into our football team responding to Saturday. And, Saturday was an emotional football game, highs and lows. And, I think the thing that really all of us have been Zoom focused on is, man, what's the urgency for this young football team to correct what we didn't do well Saturday and understand why we didn't win the football game and get ourselves ready to go against a great opponent. So, I think that's really where we put our time and effort right now.
You obviously have a lot of players from your roster from Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that they're being asked about ticket requests, things along those lines. How do you guys manage that as a staff in terms of making sure that they're locked in and prepared for the game?
Yeah, I think, and again, no different than a little bit of last week. I think every game brings unique situations. First road game, first time you're going to an area where there are players from that area. And I just think that handling the mental piece of those things are big, especially when you have a young football team. But, you're right. We've certainly got some guys that are playing good football from the state of Ohio, and it is neat that we're able to, at least 2 games here in the next couple of weeks where we get the chance to be back in Ohio.
What did Jacob Ellis show you last week and throughout, now that he's healthy and part of that rotation?
Yeah, I thought that was a critical loss a year ago for us, to be really honest with you. You know, we lost him the second game of the season, and it was critical. And for that guy to get in and get the opportunity to play and to play the way he did on Saturday was huge for our team. It was huge for our program, and it was terrible for Gary because nobody wanted to be on the field more than Gary. And you know, that was a loss. But the way Jacob played, you know, Jacob's one of those guys that came in our program, and when he got here that spring, you knew this guy was going to have a chance to be really special and really help our team in a multitude of different ways. And you know, you watch him in that game, and it's just like, man, the physicality he played with, the tenacity he played with. There's in the second to last punt of the game, you know, he has to go in because Levi Hummel gets dinged up, and he's got to go in and not only play all the snaps on defense, he's got to go in and be the left guard, and he goes down and helps make that huge stop on the punt return. And so, you know, just the kind of kid he is, what he stands for, what he's about. I think for our team going forward, continuing to find depth and guys that will stand up and make big plays, you know, it's really exciting. And he certainly did that and earned a lot of trust from our staff and certainly from his teammates on Saturday.
What strides have you taken in the run game?
Yeah, you know, I think we've run the ball pretty well. You know, I think you've seen really good efficiency so far in the season. I still think the biggest thing there is the youth of our tailbacks continuing to kind of grow. You know, I think the consistency of the offensive line, you're seeing some real positives, and you know, I think again they can continue to get themselves better too. But you know, I'm not quite sure where we're at average per rush, but I think somewhere right around 5 yards a carry, and I think those things are positive, especially the first two opponents you played who demand to stop the run. So, you know, we'll have to continue to do a great job there, but we're excited about what it's got the potential to look like.
Coach, you touched briefly on the guys that play on Sunday, but what's it like to see guys like Allen, Will, and Brees, all of them with different scenarios in New York, just to see them perform the way they did last night?
Yeah, you know, somebody showed me the clip of Allen's comments after the game, you know, and I talked to Brees in the morning yesterday, and I think to me what I really appreciate about those guys is who they are as they're continuing their journey. Yeah, it's great that they're playing really well, and you watch Brock and how he handles himself. It's who they are that makes those guys really special. And I mean, it's awesome that you're flipping on the television and must-see TV is Brock Purdy and Brees Hall, right? And you know, I think those things are really exciting. It doesn't shock any of us, but I think how they've handled their success at the next level, how they carry themselves, how they lead their football team, I think those things are really rewarding. And I think, again, it has great ramifications in our walls because our guys get to watch how they carry themselves. And I think those have been huge. They got to see it in person, and a lot of them that didn't get to see it in person get to watch it at the professional level, and I think it's big for our program.
Is this a well-timed road game for such a young team to kind of get that experience early before a Big 12 slate?
Yeah, well, I think in a multitude of ways. I mean, you're playing a really good opponent. You're playing a team that, again, has had great success and understand how to win. And you're going on the road. You're traveling for the first time. Yeah, I think it's huge. I think it's another, as we looked at this schedule, you know, you don't always love going on the road, but you know, I think it's a must-have, especially before you get into conference slate. But yeah, I think there's a lot of things that I'm excited as the head coach. How do we respond to a loss? How do you come back and practice on Tuesday and Wednesday? Man, how do you go on the road and handle yourself? How do you get into a tough environment? All those things are going to be on display. And, you know, who are we, and continue to unfold ourselves and grow ourselves. I think those are great opportunities for our team to kind of show our growth.
Back-to-back games without a sack for your offensive line. Can you just talk about what that group's done and what Coach Clanton has done since taking over?
Yeah, you know, I see that group growing, and, you know, I think that one of the things for any young quarterback is, you know, how do you help that quarterback, you know, cushion his growth process? And number one is protect him and do a great job of not letting him get hit. And then number two, create a running game around him that, you know, he doesn't have to feel the pressure. And I think so far that group has done a really good job. I think you've seen Rocco be able to get into a really good rhythm. I think you've seen him be able to execute and not sitting there running for his life. And, and you're talking about opponents that can pressure the quarterback, and we're going to get challenged again this week. A team that I think OU last year maybe had 4 sacks against us in the game. And, they got a veteran front. They got guys that can rush the quarterback, so another big challenge for that O-line. But I do see the growth in the O-line, and I still think there's more growth for that O-line to continue forward. But I'm really excited about what it's got the ability to be, because there are some real positives in the first 2 weeks.
When you come in with a redshirt freshman and a true freshman as options at quarterback, was that more of an emphasis for the offensive line, or was this just the nature of the way they play the game?
Well, I think, again, probably no different than Jeremiah. There's a lot of guys that, Tyler Miller was his first year starting a year ago. Jared Hufford, his first full year starting a year ago. James Neal, now it's his first year starting. Jim Boniface, first year. So I think some of those veterans are some of those guys that got experience a year ago. You're seeing the growth from year 1 to year 2. Daryl's obviously played a lot of football, and Grant's played a lot of football. But I think what the emphasis was is how do we do a great job taking care of these quarterbacks and putting them in a position to be successful. And I don't think that was just an offensive line thing. I think that's probably a quarterback or a tight end thing and a running back thing and a wide receiver thing. I think you want to get those guys off to a good start. And I think the thing we're excited about Rocco is you feel like he's really got himself into a pretty good rhythm so far.
Talked a little bit about the running game, but what did you see Saturday as reasons for optimism when the numbers aren't very good, but obviously I think everyone recognizes it's pretty good defense?
Yeah, and again, I think the numbers, I think the average per rush, when you look at those numbers, that's the one thing that is positive. You're gaining 4 to 5 yards a carry on Saturday, and that's hard to do against that group. And I thought the biggest thing there was I thought the physicality that Cartavius put his foot in the ground and got north. I think Abu had a couple really big runs, and I just you see those guys like getting closer and closer to feeling really confident in the running game and really confident in their reads and what they're doing. And again, you don't see a lot of negative yardage plays. I think that's the other thing so far in 2 games, that there's not guys sitting in the backfield. It's not -4 and +6. It's, man, we're getting positive yardage. So I think all those things are reasons for optimisms. And again, that group's just got to keep growing. And we think there's certainly some elite talent in there. I think, hopefully we get Eli back this week. Carson Hansen, I still think, is a guy that I think will have a chance to really do some great things in that backfield as well. So a lot of optimism around what it's got the ability to be, and a lot of challenges as well. We got to continue to make great strides forward for sure. Yeah, Gary at least was practicing today, back on the field. I would probably still tell you that he's not 100%, and I think we'll know a lot more probably by Thursday, but I think it's a lot more questionable than doubtful. And like I told you, he warmed up Saturday, just was not ready to go. So, my hope is that he will be playing.
On Saturday, you guys struggled with 3rd and long quite a bit throughout the game. How have you been prepping for that for this weekend?
There's no prep for 3rd and long. Here's what you don't want to be is in 3rd and long, and the prep is, being better, not putting ourselves in that situation. And that's a great question. It's just, man, against any good defense, and we're going to face another really good defense. I think if you look at Ohio University's stats, I think one of the best teams in the country in 3rd and long. And, to me, that's as hard of a situation in football as you can have for an offense, is sitting in those situations. And so, I'll be honest with you, I thought for the most part in that game, we didn't put ourselves in a lot of 3rd and long situations. We were able to be in 3rd and manageable, and I thought executed from week 1 to week 2 much better on 3rd down than we had in week 1. But I still think that's an area for our growth process, and is continuing to have great success on 3rd down. And like I said, the key is don't be in 3rd and long, because it's hard, and no matter how you cut it, that's a hard down and distance to be in. So good question. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Thanks, guys.